This is Lock and Load. And, well, tonight we're doing something a little different just because of the night. Because, well, you know, if it would just play, that would be really nice. There we go. There we are. They are the fastest growing new segment of buyers in the United States today. Gun buyers. They're better shots than we are. Better students than we are. They may well be the salvation of the Second Amendment. This is The Weaponized Woman with guest host Tatiana Whitlock. On a different night for a change. We're doing something different on a night because you're going out of town, right?
I am. We are just wild and crazy on a Wednesday night. What can I say? I
don't know. You know, I mean, that's just, you know, I get it. I understand the way things are. So anyway, now your guest has a nom de plume. We're not supposed to know who she is and everything.
Yes, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but I'll introduce everyone to her.
Well, I'm going to just stand back then.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, you know, Bill, you can chime in anytime you want, and we're going to talk about some pretty interesting stuff this evening. This evening, we're joined by a mother of three, general practitioner. We are speaking with a doctor, practical pistol shooter, steel challenge and sporting clays, and self-defense shooter. She is an NRA instructor as well as a Girl and a Gun member. We'd like to welcome Dr. LateBloomer to the show.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled, but a little nervous.
You'll be just fine. Don't worry. So I'm going to tell people about how we met. We met in person for the first time at SHOT Show this past January at the Aim Point booth. I don't know who was more excited to meet who, but we just hung out for a little while and yacked. And we made the line wait because that's just how that works when you get to sign pictures.
It was great fun. Yes,
I just have one question.
It was a nice serendipitous meeting.
Do I know the doctor? Do I know the doctor and I just don't know who the doctor is at this time? Or
it's quite possible. We might reveal.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious. Anyway, I'm back in the shadows again. I'll shut up again. I'll be right back.
That's okay. That's all right. If she ever takes her cape and mask off, we'll let you know. But in the meantime, we're going to go with Dr. LateBloomer. Now, you have a story that's an incredible story. Your background, while unique, it's also quite relatable to many women coming into the firearms community. But for you, there's a twist, and that's you're also a medical practitioner. So tell us a little bit about your journey into the world of firearms and medicine.
Well, it's kind of a long story. It depends on which direction you want me to take. I started out as just a middle-aged woman who was getting a divorce and going to med school. I had spent 15 years as a medical technologist, as a young wife and mother, sort of had an early midlife crisis around the age of 38. Like I said, I had the divorce and started medical school. And it was after medical school. I finished my pediatric residency. So I started med school at 38 as a divorced mother of three, finished my pediatric residency just before I turned 45. And then the following year, once all of that was taken care of, I decided, through another long story, that I wanted to learn about firearms. I was tired of being intimidated by the whole thing and not knowing what was going on.
And so you took your first class. What was your first class? How did you start that process?
So, well, actually what I did was first asked for advice from various friends of mine, including some former paratroopers and some law enforcement guys that I knew, and that I had been talking to online, and also a good friend who happened to be heavily into guns since he was probably in diapers. Got some advice as far as what to look for and went shopping for my first gun by myself. It was a rather intimidating process, but I had some ideas of what to look for from those guys. Shopped around several different places, finally settled on a Glock 19. And then the very next week, got online, found an NRA basic pistol course, emailed the instructor about what I needed to know and what I needed to bring. And, everyone was all actually very supportive through all this process, even though it was 9 years ago and there weren't a whole lot of women doing this that I knew at the time. I had no female role models. So I took my first basic pistol course, and that was the beginning of the whole rest of the story, I guess, as the saying goes.
I'm being told Dr. John Adine says hello, Dr. LateBloomer.
Oh, great. I love Dr. Adine. We haven't met in person, but we've talked a lot through Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership, and I hope to meet them all maybe next year at the Gun Rights Policy Conference.
Okay, I'm shutting up again.
no, that's good. I love it when we get a shout out. That means the good people are listening. So now you started this process about 9 or 10 years ago now.
Yeah, it'll be actually almost exactly 9 years ago. It was the end of March in 2009 that I brought that Glock 19 home.
And you still love it?
I still love it. If it's possible, well, I know it's possible, even more, because I've just taken baby steps at a time. None of this was a huge jump in with both feet, but I've then progressed from shooting by myself, at stationary paper targets to going to IDPA matches and, learning action pistol. And then I got hooked up with Babes with Bullets and learned how to shoot a semi-automatic rifle and took classes from Babes with Bullets and learned how to shoot 3-gun. And it's just been a snowballing thing ever since. One of my mottos is never stop learning, and I haven't. One of my jokes is that I never get really good at any one platform because I get bored with it first and I want to try something else.
Welcome to our world. Yes, it is so true. Now, I love this. You wrote this in an article recently published on GAT Daily titled "Life is an Oxymoron." And for those who are curious as to why we are calling this lovely lady Dr. LateBloomer, you wrote, "Sometimes life as a pediatrician and firearms enthusiast can make me feel as though I am some sort of double agent." So let folks know why. What's the reason why you go by an alias within the firearms community? I think that they need to have an appreciation for that.
Well, the main thing is that because there is so much, what's the word I'm looking for? Pushback, vindictiveness, if I may say so, from the anti-gun establishment, as it were, and also from organized medicine in general. We all know that they are so rapidly anti-gun, even that I am just a little wary about having all of that spill over into my actual practice. I'm right now trying to find the nice line in between the hobby that I love and all the people that I love in the firearms world, and all of my friends know what I do. Probably a lot of the people I introduced myself to at SHOT know what I do, but I would prefer that the general public not be able to just find my practice and, send hate mail or, I don't know. And maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm being overly cautious. But since I was a non-traditional student to med school, I've only been out and in practice 10 years, and I probably have a good 15 years left of my loans left to pay off. And I am a little bit afraid that it might affect my ability to practice appropriately. And also, I'm in private practice with a partner, and my partner is rather liberal. And although he knows what I do and, is fairly supportive in his own way, I also don't want this to unfairly affect him because of what I do.
Of course. And we talk about this a lot with women in different facets of professional space and social space. We're starting to refer to this as like a peer or social shaming and that stigma associated with firearms.
And I feel that women sometimes are more adversely affected by that than, say, Dr. Adine. He's a man, and I hate to cop out and say, women are more often victims in this, but look at, the female hunters and all and the social media shaming.
It's so true. Now, we're going to have to cut to break in just a second, but folks, if you're interested in learning more, go to drlatebloomer.com, and you can also find articles that she has contributed on GAT Daily, GATdaily.com.
And if you get tired of the doctor thing, you can become a radio host. And when we get hate mail, we refer to that as show prep.
Good to know.
It is a growth industry, trust me. We'll be right back. This is The Weaponized Woman, guest host Tatiana. Studio. This is Lock and Load. Tonight, it is The Weaponized Woman with Tatiana Whitlock and Dr. LateBloomer. I almost, when I was putting her name in the Comrex, I almost got it backwards and was going to call her Dr. Bloom later, or. Anyway.
Honestly, you can call me anything but late for supper.
I got you. I digress.
I'm with you there.
I'm going to sit back and I may have an opinion later on in this hour about your dilemma of trying to, have all these plates in the air about trying not to upset anybody.
Okay.
But it's just an opinion, Doc. Don't worry about it, okay? It's just an opinion.
Okay.
I will
I'm
be
open
over
to
here,
more
sitting
opinions.
back,
That's okay.
leaning back in the chair.
Okay. All right. So earlier, you mentioned that due to that fear of social shaming, of that anti-gun workplace discrimination, that you went looking for kindred spirits within your professional community and that you found them. You joined the Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership, which is a project of the Second Amendment Foundation. So tell us all a little bit. I know there are plenty of people who are very familiar with this group, but up until about a year ago, I didn't know it existed, and I was thrilled to find it. So introduce the program to us and explain a little bit about how they're contributing to the Second Amendment and to educating people.
Well, honestly, I didn't know they existed until about 3 years ago, when I had written a blog post that had gotten a fair amount of attention, about children and safety and, doctors asking questions and things like that. And I was actually contacted, I believe it was by Dr. Dean, said, we may be interested in working with you. So the docs at Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership, they have a several-fold mission. We work to try to critique bad research that's out there and provide actual proper data, proper interpretation of the data. Some of the docs are available for speaking and representing a different view, the opposite view, more or less, of organized medicine. My personal role is I'm a contributing writer to their blog, and I believe Dr. Dean is in charge of membership. Dr. Young runs things. Dr. Prishbinda is the sort of our CEO at this point. But we all have different roles to play. They would be able to tell you more about the ins and outs of the actual organization. But our main thrust is to counter all of the nonsense that's out there from organized medicine saying that guns are a public health risk. We all know that's not true. The data says it's not true, but we have to combat all of the nonsense. I'd like to use a worse term, but I know we're for public broadcast. And the more I talk to people, the more I discover there are lots of us docs out here who enjoy firearms and enjoy the shooting sports, but most of us don't speak up. And so Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership is sort of the voice right now.
And it's a very strong voice. The website is DRGO.us. If you haven't visited, please do. You'll find that the contributors are massive individuals in their fields. You're speaking with pediatricians, psychologists, people who are leaders in behavioral psychology, and what they're writing on are relevant issues to the Second Amendment. I think this is absolutely vital. There's an article here, Gun Laws versus Firearms Suicides, and in that it challenges where the statistics are coming from, how they're being compiled, and the fallacy of utilizing that as a marketing tool to push a political agenda, and written by someone who speaks the language of the individuals who are no closer to this than the doctors themselves. So it is an absolutely phenomenal resource. The white papers available here are phenomenal. There's also links on this page to the suicide prevention lifeline. So this isn't just us preaching from the bully pulpit. We are providing through this many resources for individuals to get help as well as primary source information. So I think that's amazing. Now, as a mom, I find it interesting that when I'm looking for healthcare providers, I have placed 2 calls to new primary care physicians, and I have gotten no responses back. And it was actually proposed to me that part of the reason I might not be getting a response back is if anybody Googles me in my neighborhood, they're going to find out what I do. And so that I might not be getting a call back because, well, maybe I might push the limits there. So while I was looking at the Doctors for Responsible Gun Owner program, I found the 2adoc.com link, which is phenomenal.
Yes, and that's fairly new. I think we're still collecting docs for that list. Again, I'm not directly involved in that end of it, but it is sort of a pet project that's new, and we would really like to get more docs into the database for this.
And it is a database it's the ability to connect patients with gun-friendly medical providers, which is amazing because that would be wonderful. I mean, when I go to the optometrist and I'm like, I need to focus right here, and I put my fingertip out, and they're like, why do you need to focus right there? I'm like, well, so what do you do on the weekends? Because that front sight's like right where my fingertip is, and that would really be great right there. And then also sending students to doctors who are firearms friendly so that they can get prescription shooting glasses and address other medical concerns. That's something that I don't think many people have had to deal with until they go and have a conversation.
Exactly. Suppose you have a shoulder problem and you're, a sporting clays shooter. You need to be able to explain what you do and your needs to your orthopedic surgeon, for instance.
Absolutely. And it's always kind of funny to me. I'll go and do a really intensive program, a full weekend, 16-hour-a-day, program that's very physical. There's some force on force involved. And then if you have your yearly wellness checkup and you have to explain that no, the bruises and the burns are actually, they're a good thing. I am safe at home. So it's an interesting conversation.
I can imagine. I do feel I should point out, Tatiana, though, that the name of the group is Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership. The organization is open to other allied health professionals as well. If you are an ICU nurse and you love to shoot, please join. If you're an anesthesiologist, if you are a physical therapist, the ownership membership is open to all kinds of health professionals, not just physicians.
That is amazing. And I would encourage anyone who is out there interested in participating and joining, please do check out the website. It is DRGO.us, and you can find more articles from Dr. LateBloomer on GATDaily.com, and on her website, Dr. LateBloomer, drlatebloomer.com as well. This is fantastic information, and again, for many individuals who haven't heard of it before, an incredible primary resource.
I've got my petition in to be allowed into the DRGO because I am a patient. Coming up on the next break. Yeah. This is The Weaponized Woman. We'll be right back. This is also Lock and Load. Her name is redacted to protect you from what, I think that sounds pretty good. Dr. John is saying he's going to meet you at GRPC in Chicago. What are they doing holding GRPC in Chicago?
That would be a good question. That's a surprise.
Do you live in Chicago?
I do not.
I know Tatiana doesn't live in Chicago. Of course, when it snows, Tatiana doesn't really know where she lives anyway. It's just white. Just complete white out, isn't it? Just white out up there. Great white north. Anyway, GRPC in Chicago. Little more planning needs to be done, I think, coming from 2AF. Anyway, that's enough of me. I'm going to sit back. It's a long segment. Tatiana, please have at it. Do we still have Tatiana?
I'm right here.
Maybe
you got me.
Okay.
I'm still here. And yes, this is the Great White North. We can sort of see some green. It's breached freezing temperatures. We're finally over it a wee bit. So okay. I'm thrilled. I'm hoping. There's hope yet for Maine, the last holdout of the Second Amendment in New England. So we're trying. But being a mom with two little kids, they're 8 and 9 years old, we find ourselves at the pediatrician's office a couple times a year, a couple on purpose and a couple because, life happens. And every year we fill out the annual questionnaire. In that questionnaire, there's questions about sleep habits and eating habits, technology habits, how much screen time the kids are getting on a daily basis. And then, of course, the big ticket, the question that gets so many gun-toting moms the heebie-jeebies, is the do you have firearms in the home question. And I get asked this all the time by families that are new to firearms. The kids came first and the guns came second, and now they've answered this a million times and never had to think about answering the gun one, and now they do. And they don't know what to say because they feel like they're being cornered and they'll be judged, or they will be, they don't know. They're afraid to put anything down, and it's a nerve-wracking thing because you want to be honest, but at the same time, should you disclose all that stuff? So tell us your take on this. Is it appropriate? How does it serve to help the children? What is it doing? What is that question doing?
Personally, I don't think it's an appropriate question. And we are a private practice, and so we have a little more control over what kind of forms we have to or don't have to use, and so we don't ask that question in my office. Personally, I think it's inconsistent. What I ask if I'm in a well check or something, I ask if the kids know what the rules are for any firearms in the house. That way you don't have to say, yes, you do, no, you don't. And I think it's inconsistent in relation to the rest of the pediatric questions that the organization insists you ask. For instance, we don't have to know if a teenager is using alcohol or cigarettes in order to counsel them about alcohol and cigarettes. So we don't have to know whether there are firearms in the home in order to counsel safe practices. I just think their insistence on this is politically motivated and not patient-centered motivated. People could argue with me about that, but that's my personal feeling on it. So, like I said, we don't even have that question on our questionnaires. And if I feel like the vibe and the dynamic is appropriate in the room, I will ask as part of all of the other safety questions, like bicycle helmets and seat belts and swimming pool safety and all of that kind of stuff. It's in context of all of the other safety stuff. It doesn't single out firearms. And I say, and the state I'm in, which shall be unnamed, has a very strong hunting and firearms heritage. And so lots of our patients hunt. And so I ask if the kids know what the rules are for any firearms that happen to be in the home. I think that's a pretty nondescript and non-condemnative way to bring it up. And half the time, somebody in the room is wearing camo anyway. And so sometimes I'll use that as a segue and say, hey, especially if it's, November, are you going out for deer season? Do you use a bow? Did you have luck this year? Or what did you think about the latest Jerry Mitchell video? So I've had a lot of good conversations that way, actually, surprisingly. And I think there are a few dads whose jaws have dropped open. For instance, they'll show up with a Glock hat on or something to bring the kid for an earache or whatever. And I'll say, oh, Glock. I say, I've got 3. What do you shoot? What do you like? And so I've had some really surprising, fortunately, responses to that. And then that opens up the door because they realize that I'm not condemning them. I know what I'm talking about. And if I'm talking safety, I can do it appropriately.
I'm being asked a question in the chat room, if I may pass it on. If there are no kids in the house that you know about, do doctors still ask the question about guns in the household?
I'm not in adult medicine, but I think they do. I think they still ask the question in the adult medicine world, and whether you do or do not have kids in the house, I think.
Somebody named
not my forte.
Somebody named Miriam Ofsonic on Facebook loves the two of you. So please, I'm going to shut up again so she'll love some more.
We love you too.
I love you.
Absolutely. And that's a real thing. I mean, like I alluded to in the past segment, that we've got different injuries, we've got different physical concerns, and what your children are able to talk about and share with people. They're afraid. My children have been taught that we don't discuss our firearms activities at school. We don't discuss our politics or our religion at school. And so by making it not so gun centric, but you've incorporated it into a bigger lifestyle picture, that means yes, this is appropriate, and no, these types of things are not appropriate within that environment. I wouldn't say that's discrimination. I wouldn't say that is restricting their freedom of expression, but it's teaching them some social graces and courtesy. And we don't want to set our kids up for a verbal assault without the skill sets to defend themselves and their thoughts and their values. Now, you have a family of your own. You came into firearms later in life. How did your family embrace this new facet of you?
I think especially my daughters are quite accepting and sort of proud of me now. I think they kind of didn't know what to think when things first started. My son was grown and out of the house by then, but I had 2 daughters who were still at home when I first started learning how to shoot. And eventually, once I got a little more experience under my belt, and they were quite willing and happy, I actually took each one of them to a Babes with Bullets camp as well, so that they had an introduction to semi-automatic pistol, at least, under their belts before they went to college. Now they're busy with life, and I'm empty nesting, but I feel like they've at least had the introduction, and if they feel like they want to come back to it, they can. That's sort of as far as we went with it in my house, because they weren't small when I started. So my experience is going to be different than you, for instance. You've still got elementary school children.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So,
now, I've had a lot of, and it's true. I mean, when I give the Kids and Guns lecture, I talk very specifically about the fact that your requirements as a parent and that your home strategy has to evolve with each child's developmental stage. And if you're not doing that appropriately, you set them up for failure in so many ways that it's a problem. You can put safety out, electrical outlet covers on all the outlets in your house for your newborn baby. You can take it to that extent, even though the child can't access them. But then those covers tend to come away as they grow up, and then suddenly you find the child is playing with them and the covers are gone because you've become comfortable with the child and the child's proximity to something that could hurt them, and you've eroded your safety measures. And that's something that becomes... Exactly, and that can be dangerous. Bill, do you have any thoughts before we cut to break?
No, I'm just sitting back, and I was just thinking, with each and every passing week, I keep getting more. I've been getting feedback, but now I'm getting live feedback, so I'm just sitting around trying to feel, like a genius. Yeah.
So again, for folks who are interested in following Dr. LateBloomer, it's drlatebloomer.com. Her articles can also be found on gotdaily.com, and there's some wonderful resources in there, as well as a pediatrician explains the AR-15. So give it a look.
You heard it. We'll be right back. This is Lock and Load. Tonight we are doing the weaponized woman, because one of the weaponized women, the guest host, is going to be. What are you going to be doing?
Me?
Yeah. Where are you going? Where are you going to? Where you won't be around? You got something fun going on,
I am
right?
all over the country. Yes. We're preparing for the National Conference for a Girl with a Gun, which will be next month in Burnett, Texas. And we've got about 400 ladies coming out, some phenomenal instructors from all over the country. And we'll be rolling out a brand new Girl with a Gun instructor program while we're out there. So we have our hands full and a lot to prepare for. So yes, me and Juliana and Robin are diving in and sleeping very little.
Are we going to be able to get a picture of all of the girls on the guns and all of the weaponized women? Are they all going to be at the NRA meetup?
I certainly hope so.
Yeah,
we'll grab as many as we can.
I think we ought to get them all in one spot. I still owe quite a few things. I did one thing with somebody, and that the video came off so bad, I was like, I'm not putting that up. I will do it with her again. So I owe all the weaponized women something. So anyway, I will shut up and let you guys finish.
Okay. So, like so many women, I personally went from falling in love with firearms from range planking, and then diving into some more formal training, and then establishing those requisite confidence skills to become a concealed carrier and have firearms in my home that are ready for home defense. And then it seems like a very logical next step, and joined the world of hunting. I didn't grow up in a family that was a very gun-centric family. We had shotguns, and occasionally the boys would go out for weekend warrior duck hunts. But it wasn't something that was really a part of my life. And I'm finding that I'm not alone. All of these women that are coming into firearms may or may not have experienced the world of hunting. And for many of them, the concept is foreign and bad, and all of the stigma that goes with it that's so anti-Second Amendment. If you're a vegan, hunting is bad. And so that tends to be imposed upon us, right? But I'm not alone. It seems so many women are following this process, and they are loving it. And you have joined the world of hunting, and look out turkeys, because here,
that's
Dr. LateBloomer
project. Yeah, that's my goal for the spring. I've been, hunting has been a gradual process. My father was a lifetime hunter, but when I was growing up, early 70s, girls didn't do that. It just never happened. But I was exposed to it from an early age. But I'm experiencing a similar progression to what you mentioned. Is once I got comfortable with pistol and rifle and shotgun, and okay, well, I've got these skills. what is something practical I can do with them. So on one end, I've, taking some self-defense courses and learning that, and on the other end, I'm learning some hunting. I've been on a couple of guided pheasant hunts and one duck hunt, and this year I joined the National Wild Turkey Federation and happened to have won a set of calls as a door prize at a press conference I attended at SHOT this year, so that was very fortuitous. So I'm making awful noises with my turkey calls, and friend of mine, Anne Marie Foster, who runs Calibered Events, just went with me to some family property the other weekend to help me learn how to track and figure out where they're at. And she's going to take me for my first hunt. Unfortunately, I think it's the weekend of the NRA. so I will be in the field with turkeys instead of with you all at the NRA meeting.
I don't know. I think that would be a tough call. I love turkey hunting, so, I'd be flipping a coin for that one. Turkey hunting is so addicting. But you're right. You make such an atrocious noise. If you're not actually talking to a turkey, it really does sound horrific.
I tried to explain to my daughter, my oldest daughter came along with us the other weekend when we went tracking, and I tried to explain to her that it sounds kind of like nails on a blackboard. It's that screechy, scrapey kind of noise, but the turkeys apparently like it. I haven't gotten one to answer yet, but that's my next learning curve.
Bill, did you have a question?
There's a certain fascination to me to be able to, take my own meat. And, I'm certainly not vegan, but there's a certain satisfaction in that. When I prepared my own pheasant and I prepared my own ducks and I, cooked with a bird that I shot myself, and it was very satisfying. And so I want to do more of that.
I feel like I have led a very sheltered life. So you guys can talk to turkeys, you say?
We can.
Oh, well, I didn't say I could do it well.
We woo turkeys.
Woo turkeys.
We do. That's right. And you're so right. There is an immense amount of satisfaction in being self-sufficient. And then when you realize that, wild harvested meat is very lean and very healthy without the antibiotics and all the stuff that comes with it, it's actually a much more healthy choice.
Exactly. And as I'm getting older, I'm discovering that I need to pay more and more attention to these things. And actually, now that I'm empty nesting, I have more time to spend on cooking things properly and that kind of stuff. So it's all of this is a learning process for me, how to prepare the game and how to hunt the game and call the game, and do I need a tree stand or not, and what kind of camo do I need? And so it's all, my motto is always never stop learning. And so there's always one next thing to learn, and right now it's everything involved with the turkey stuff.
What I was going to tell you, Doc, I understand the balancing act you're trying to strike right now with your doctor, and it's you're in this discipline, even with the DRGO behind you, you're sort of like considered an odd duck, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah.
I mean, women in shooting, there's more of us, but to be a woman in shooting and a doctor is even less common. I know a few of us, but most of them keep their heads low. I'm right now the only one who's sticking her head up.
I honestly believe in this world today, when you look around at everything, there's a whole lot of followers and very few people that just stand up on their own. And you taking this, because, I've had Tim Wheeler on the show, and I've had Robert Young, and I've had John Dean on the show. And I know what kind of stuff, the kind of pushback you get as physicians and as gun owners and as advocates to a certain degree. And amongst your peers, there may be some people out there that might look at you sort of funny. I would think amongst your peers, there's probably a bunch of them that wish they could mimic your courage. Because that's sort of an odd thing out there. Well, no, I'm sure it is a lot. Because when you look out there, how many people get out there and actually say, when somebody's stepping out of turn or something, how many people actually say, hey, hold on there right there, pal, before I hit you real hard, or something like that? Most people don't do that nowadays. Most people just hold their head down, or they're on their phone, or they heard a loud noise. They look up and go, what? I was on Facebook. What? So actually being engaged in life today is a rarity. And being engaged in life as a female who's now a gun owner is also a rarity. And being engaged as a female that's a gun owner, that's a shooter, that is also a physician is even a bigger rarity. And then when you throw into it the mix that you can talk to turkeys, well, you see what I'm saying.
Well, I prefer to think that I'm not hanging out here all by myself, but that's another reason that I started the blog and I started to write, was because I wanted to let other women out there know that I'm just some middle-aged chick who decided she wanted to learn something new. I don't feel like there's anything special about me, and I wanted other women to read the stories of the things that I learned and figure out, hey, I could do that too. My ultimate goal is not self-promotion, but to get more and more women interested in this kind of stuff, because I'm having a blast.
Yeah, but just remember this part. Remember this part.
As a group are wonderful.
They're going to be attracted to the shooting sports because of what you do. So, don't be afraid of, enjoying what you do that's not out there saying, well, of course I'm famous and known. Would you like that's not what that is. That's getting out there and saying you can make up your own mind. You can defend yourself. You don't have to wait on anybody. No, you're going to have to wait on it. You're in this by yourself, ladies. And, they'll listen to you. They'll listen to ladies. Ladies will listen to ladies. I get that. I get that completely. I do. Although, ever since you guys were talking, Tatiana, I just had this image of how Steve Fisher does a turkey call. And I was wondering how he does it. And does he get out there in the field and start screaming, hey, turkey? So.
I'll let you ask him that question, because the season's about to open and his backyard is going to get really exciting, because he's been sending me pictures of the flock that's
I guess I'll see him in May. I'll see him in May, so I'll ask him then. Anyway, I'm going to, thank you for that's the other thing about the weaponized woman. It's pretty mobile. It moves around, mobile, agile, and when it needs to be hostile. And that's some good stuff. I like it. Dr. LateBloomer, you and I will meet, and if you still want me to call you that, that's fine. I'll do that.
Well, I hope to give you my real name in person.
There you go. I guess I'll see you in May in Dallas, hopefully, and we'll see what we get. Tatiana Whitlock, you can find her at TatianaWhitlock.com. She's, like she said, she's all over the place, doing all kinds of things, normally with a weapon in hand. Thank you for joining me this evening, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.
All right. Hour number 3 is inbound. Coming up next from Pipe Hitters Union, Lincoln, Osiris. This is Lock and Load.